is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going over your fantasy football dynasty startup strategies. Inside of today's video, I'll be focusing in on 5 different points. The first point of today's video is going to be the key things that you guys need to know when heading into your startup draft. The second point being to understand positional value. Third is understanding the differences between a dynasty fantasy football startup draft and a redraft normal fantasy football draft. The fourth point is going to be valuing talent versus the situation, the team that the player is on. And the final point of today's video is going to be what to consider during your actual fantasy football dynasty startup draft. But before we could get on into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help us out a ton. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious FNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first point of today's video, like I said a couple of seconds ago, is the key things that you guys need to know, that you need to understand before heading into your startup. The first thing is understanding how many players are in this league. Is this an 8-team league? Is this a 10-team league? A 12-team league? A 14-team league? I've seen leagues as big as the fucking NFL. There are leagues where there are 32 players in the league. Now, am I going to play in a league like that? No, because I think that's crazy. But some people will. So make sure you understand the size of your league. The second thing that you need to know, which is just as important, if not maybe even more important, is the settings of your league. Is this going to be a half PPR league? A full PPR league? Are you playing with dinosaurs? Is this a standard league? Is this a tiered PPR league where maybe tight ends get an extra half PPR for every reception? Is this 4-point per passing touchdown? 6-point per passing touchdown? Is this one of those funky leagues where it's 1 point per rushing attempt, 1 point per first down? There's a 1 point per... There's a lot of different leagues where there's just crazy settings. So you need to make sure that you check the settings. There's 4-point per passing touchdown, 6-point per passing touchdown. There's 5-point per passing touchdown leagues. There's a lot of different ways to play fantasy football. There's a lot of ways to play dynasty fantasy football. Is this a super flex league? Is this a 1 quarterback league? Is this a 3 flex league? 3 wide receiver league? How many positions can you start each week? How deep is the bench? These are all things that you need to understand before you start the draft. And these are kind of basic tips because basically anyone who is playing in a dynasty fantasy football league, they're probably pretty familiar with fantasy football. The first time a majority of people play fantasy football is going to be in a redraft league. So my assumption is that pretty much every single viewer of this video has already played in a redraft league and is looking to make that leap into a dynasty league, or maybe they're joining another dynasty league and they feel as though they didn't do a good job the first time and they want to get a better understanding of what to do during their dynasty startup draft. So my assumption here is that you guys have at least played regular fantasy football. So again, some of that stuff you may have already known. Hey, you need to make sure to check the league settings, blah, blah, blah. But it is something that is super important. I make sure to read the league settings multiple times before any of my drafts to make sure that I know exactly what is going to be happening. And the biggest point that I've seen people fuck up in a lot of my dynasty startup drafts is not understanding how the rookie draft works and how rookie draft picks are distributed. Now, in some leagues, they keep it simple, right? If you were the number 1 pick in the draft in a 12-team league, then in the startup draft, if you're number 1, then in the rookie draft, you're going to be number 12 to make things even out. But then there's going to be some other leagues, which every single league I'm in does this, where you draft your rookie pick. So the commissioner will put kickers in, and you want to draft the 101, you take the first kicker off the board, then you get the 101. You want the 102, you draft the second kicker off the board, and so on and so forth. And that is not some obscene strategy or some obscene league type. Now, maybe you've never played in a league like that, but it seems like that's how a lot of people are playing now. So you need to make sure you understand how the rookie draft picks are distributed, as well as how the rookie draft works, because in most rookie drafts, it's not snake like your normal draft. It doesn't go 1 through 12 and then 12 through 1. In rookie drafts, a lot of time, it's linear. So you need to make sure that you understand how the rookie draft works, as well as how rookie draft picks are distributed, because you don't want to be halfway through your fucking draft and then you're wondering, why are people drafting all these kickers? And then you realize, I don't have a 2022 first round pick. I really liked X player, and now I can't even go get them without making a trade. So make sure you understand the rules. While it may sound super obvious, while everyone's Dynasty startup strategy video will probably tell you the exact same thing, it is very important. It is the key piece of the video. If you do not understand how your draft works, then you are probably going to likely draft poorly. The next topic of today's video is going to be understanding positional value. Now, if you are used to playing redraft fantasy football in the first round, the second round, the third round, there's a bunch of running backs taken. People love to draft running backs early and often. I want to get my 2 starting running backs. Maybe you want to go crazy, you draft 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds, and I don't think that's a bad strategy in redraft. But in terms of Dynasty Fantasy Football, running backs kind of almost get pushed to the side in a way, unless they're super young, because these wide receivers, they have this very long shelf life. You can have a wide receiver that's good from 23 years old to 34 years old. Whereas a running back, the odds that that happens is very, very low. So you are likely to be seeing a lot more wide receivers go in the first 3 rounds of your Dynasty Fantasy Football startup, or tight ends, and if it's a Superflex League, quarterbacks, than you are typically used to. So you have to understand that a lot of people are going to put a lot heavier weight onto the wide receiver position compared to in a normal redraft league where everyone wants to get that star running back. That running back that maybe he might be running back 15 off the board, but man, oh man, he has the upside to be the number 1 running back in the NFL. This happens every season. In August, there'll be a running back coming off the board at like running back 17 that I will probably tell you guys I really believe could be the best running back in fantasy. It happens every single year, but typically in these dynasty startup drafts, you see people hold out on the running back position, and especially the sharper you get in these dynasty fantasy football drafts, the sharper people you're playing with, the longer it takes for a lot of running backs to be taken, and those older running backs, the Dalvin Cook type, that's pretty good, could probably be top 5 this year, Alvin Kamara like that, but who knows how long they can keep doing it for. They go a lot later. So you gotta understand how much people put age into the equation when drafting running backs. So the positional value of running backs is drastically different than it is in a normal redraft league. And that does lead to wide receivers being drafted at a much higher rate early on. So understanding the differences between dynasty and redraft is the next point. And these 2 points kind of go hand in hand, so I wanted to jump into this. Again, the difference between dynasty and redraft is probably very clear, right? In a dynasty draft, there is going to be people drafting players that may not even do good this season, right? I might draft Breece Hall at the 101 of my rookie draft. I might draft him in the 3rd round of my dynasty startup draft if he's included in the startup, if there's no rookie picks. And I don't really think he's going to do all that great this year, but next year, going forward, I think he could be dominant. So my draft strategy changes immensely. Age is much more in the equation than it is in my redraft draft. I don't give a fuck if a guy's 32 years old if I believe he's going to perform this season in redraft. Whereas in a dynasty league, you have to knock him down a couple pegs because while he might be good in 2022, how useful is he going to be in 2024? And something you also need to keep in mind is in redraft leagues, while there's going to be reaches in your draft, right? The Cowboys fan drafts Zeke, who should be going in the 4th round right now based upon underdog ADP. He goes in like the 2nd round, right? Because the Cowboys fan is crazy. They want to do that. You can make the same argument for any team, right? The Chiefs fan drafts Patty Mahomes in the 1st round, right? But in Dynasty, people tend to, at least in a lot of drafts I'm in, really reach a lot more than they would in a regular draft because now they feel stuck to this player. Now they feel as though this is going to be my guy for the next X amount of years. I want to have him. I want to have my favorite player. I'm a Dolphins fan. I love Jalen Waddle. And then, maybe I want to draft him higher than I should because he's on my favorite team. I want to draft Tua because he's my quarterback. That shit happens in redraft. But what I've noticed is it happens even more in Dynasty. And I probably should have mentioned this point earlier, but I want you guys to understand that when you go into your draft, that you don't have to just be thinking, you know what? you know what? I'm going to take this team and I'm going rebuild. I'm going to try to draft the young guys. I'm trading my picks that are early in the draft, and I'm going to get a future first round pick in my rookie draft. I'm going to trade all these picks. I'm going to do blah, blah, blah to make sure that I'm in a rebuilding situation. I don't think you should be going into the draft with that thought process. I think you should be going into the draft with an open mind. And then, however the draft falls to you, that's how you change up your strategy. If you're realizing people are really reaching up for these young gun players, and there's a lot of guys that might be good for the next 2-3 years, then maybe you want to put yourself in a situation to contend, to try to go ahead and win the thing. But if people are reaching on those veterans, then maybe you're thinking, you know what? Let's build a young team, and then maybe a year or two from now, I'm going to win the fucking championship. Those are the kind of things that you need to make sure you think of during the draft, and don't just put yourself in a box. This is what happens in regular fantasy football drafts too. People think, I need 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds. Well, I think that's a good rule of thumb. If the draft doesn't fall that way and you're reaching on running backs, you're going to end up fucking your team up. So make sure that you understand that you can't just go into the draft with the strategy and just completely follow that. So before we got into my next Dynasty Startup Strategy tip, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy, which is the best place to play fantasy football best ball this summer. Best Ball Mania 3, their new tournament, has $10 million in total prize money. You just draft your team, and that's it. There's no waivers. There's no trades. There's no in-season management. The draft is the most fun part of fantasy football in my mind. And to most people, you ask them what's your favorite part, it's the draft. So all you got to do is draft your team, and then Underdog has a system that just gives you the best score each week of the season, with the highest scorer on your team being put into your lineup. It's that simple. You don't even have to think about it. You just draft it, you forget it, and maybe you come back at the end of the season and you won $2 million fucking dollars. Sounds like a good deal to me. Last year's Best Ball Mania champion was drafted in June. So it's not like a lot of people think, oh, I have to wait until August to draft because of injuries, blah, blah, blah. You can still find an edge drafting early on in May or June. And the fact that the person who won last year drafted in June tells you that you can do the exact same thing. So there's no need to wait. You can go ahead and draft now. Underdog doubles your first deposit up to $100 when you sign up with promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO. That's good for 4 entries into Best Ball Mania 3. Head on over to UnderdogFantasy.com or in the App Store, or just click the link in the video description down below and sign up with the promo code Awesemo today. If you click on the link in the description, it just automatically does it for you. So the next point to talk about in today's video is going to be valuing talent versus situation. Now, in my opinion, when the player is a rookie, a lot of the time, while I like to bake the situation into the situation, right? I'm trying to bake the team into my thought process. A lot of the time, if you think that this player is really talented, even if they end up on a shitty situation, you want to draft them, because eventually, if they really are that guy, if they are that dude that you thought they were in college, then they are going to become good. They are going to beat out that bad situation. So you got to value the talent a lot more, in my book, in the rookie draft. But once you're in the real draft, or Dynasty Startup Draft, situation plays a big part of it, right? The fact that Mike Evans is on the Bucs with Tom Brady, while he's amazing, that's going to up my view on him. Brandon Cooks is probably a wide receiver 2 on most teams, but he's on the fucking Texans. He's the number 1 guy. While he's good, the situation is heavily baked into the reason why I'm going to go on wherever I'm playing my fantasy football dynasty draft, where I'm doing the draft, and slap the draft button on him because of the situation. So while a lot of people are going to tell you, you got to be so clear on just the talent. It's all about talent. In fantasy football, it's a lot about the situation. It's a lot about the opportunity that the player might be getting in the future. The Chiefs, they draft Sky Moore. You like the player, you like the situation, he's going to go higher. They bring in Juju. If you don't love Juju, but you love the Chiefs, you might want to bump them up a notch. You know what I'm saying? So I think that a lot of people are so keen on talking about talent, but where, in my opinion, I think you also have to bake situation into that equation. And I hope that you guys are understanding what I'm saying here. So if you guys have any questions about any point I've made in today's video, please make sure that you leave a comment down below and I'll type back a reply to help you guys understand my thought process when I'm making this video. And if you guys have any other questions just surrounding around Dynasty, never hesitate to ask, right? I'm always trying to answer the comments. So what to consider during the actual draft is my final point. And during the actual draft is when people start to shit themselves. People, they do all the research. They understand the league settings. They understand positional value. They understand the differences between Dynasty and redraft. They understand how they want to value talent versus situation. They understand how they want to value the age of players. Now you're in the draft, and now you're nervous. Now you're nervous. It happens to almost everyone. You're sitting there, you're looking at the screen, you're like, wow, I got to make this pick. Should I trade out? Should I select this player? What should I do? And the point of what to consider during the actual draft that I want to talk about is the art of trading. When should you be trading out? When should you be trading up? And it is all about the deal. It is all about the deal. I'm not just going to... A lot of people just want to trade out of the first round. Let me get that pick. Let me move down. Let me do this and that. But while you might want to do that, while it does make sense into building a great team, you have to understand the deal that you're getting. Don't just trade your pick. Don't just trade this. Don't just fucking trade half your team during the draft for someone else's half of their team because you want to, because it's fun. You got to understand how things work. Trades in Dynasty Fantasy Football are very key to winning the whole thing, to taking home the hardware. But you need to actually understand what you're doing when you're making these trades. So if you guys have any questions about trades, say someone offers you a trade, shoot it to me on Twitter, @NotoriousFNTSY. Leave it in the comment section, because I want to make sure that you guys are actually doing what maybe you believe. You can give, hey, my opinion on this is this. What do you think? And they'll tell you what I think. And you could be like, you know what, Nick? That's some great advice. Or Nick, go fuck yourself. I'm doing it anyways. And that's fine with me, because at the end of the day, guys, it's your team. It's your team at the end of the day. But please make sure that during the draft, you actually try to consider, you think very deeply before you make a trade and you potentially ship half your team away. You trade away this pick where maybe you really wanted Justin Herbert and you trade the pick away because that's what people tell you to do. But if you really want Justin Herbert, just take him. Because at the end of the day, while I want to win, and while my biggest goal is to win, you also want to have fun. Fantasy football, to me, a lot of it, I like winning. I'm always trying to win, right? I wouldn't be trying to win if I wasn't making these videos, right? Of course, I want you guys to win. I want to win as well. But I also want to have fun. And to me, the most fun part about fantasy football is actually watching the games. It's actually drafting the team, building this team, eventually winning, but still having fun while doing it. So make sure that you guys have fun. That's my biggest tip. Make sure that you have a great time. So I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And please make sure in the comment section you leave any questions you got. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy.